following is an exclusive presentation of the LSU Sports Radio Network. Welcome in to the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Download the ASAP app today. Coming up, head coach Brian Kelly discusses the week ahead for LSU Fighting Tiger football. But first, from inside the Capital One LSU Sports Radio Network studios, here are former Tiger Gordy Rush and the voice of your Fighting Tigers, Chris Blair.
Well, after LSU went to Fayetteville, got the job done later on, once the Tigers arrived back here in Baton Rouge via charter, we all found out LSU, the 2022 SEC West champions. Welcome in, everybody, to the Brian Kelly Press Conference, again delivered by ASAP.com. Coming up, leads you up to 12 noon. Coach Brian Kelly will talk about this past Saturday's game and getting prepared for another matchup, this time out of conference. Coming up, a late one on a Saturday night in Death Valley. Out of Conference UAB, it'll be USA, I should say. It'll be UAB, the Blazers, coming in again with kickoff just after 8 o'clock. Before we get started and break down this past Saturday's game and the win over Arkansas, Gordy, I wanted to take a moment to just send our heartbreak today after many of us got up. There was a shooting overnight at the University of Virginia involving University of Virginia football players, and tragically 3 have died, 2 surviving, and in that shooting, one of which close to home, Mike Hollins, star running back at U High here in Baton Rouge, a junior running back for the Cavaliers. So we certainly want to send our best wishes to Hollins, of course, his family here and all of his friends and former schoolmates. But our heart breaks today for the University of Virginia and obviously the Cavalier football team.
Yeah, from what little we're hearing, Hollins undergoing surgery should survive this, but prayers and thoughts, that whole Virginia family up there. Tragic situation.
All right, let's talk about LSU and Arkansas. You know, we sat here last week during the Brian Kelly press conference, and we talked about some of the strengths of Arkansas versus the strengths of LSU, the weaknesses as well. But we kind of felt like it was going to be a physical game. We knew the weather and the conditions would be different. I don't know that you could say had an impact, didn't have an impact on the play of LSU, but it certainly was different with kickoff 34 degrees. And when we arrived, there were nothing but ice covering the playing surface. They got that cleaned up. I don't think the surface for the most part had an issue. But LSU find a way to win. And, you know, that's one of the things Coach Kelly, I'm sure, will say again. He said it after the game. He was proud of the team. Never easy to win in the SEC on the road. And when things didn't go their way early, they still kept fighting and got out of there with a 13-10 win, which, as I said, led to a SEC West championship.
Absolutely. And let's start with LSU's defense, who played lights out. The fortunate break for LSU, K.J. Jefferson was ruled out. Did not play in this football game, so they faced the second and third string quarterbacks. But still, look, this is the SEC. You've got plenty of talent on all these rosters, but LSU's defense was dominant. They adjusted to 2 different styles of play with the different quarterbacks that played in the game. Malik Hornsby, obviously was more of a sprinter. He was a sprinter in college, rather than high school, 100, 200-meter guy, and wanted to run the football, and it was spread the run sort of attack. And then Cade Fortin, the transfer from North Carolina and South Florida, came in and threw the football a little bit more success, but LSU's defense had a whale of an afternoon.
Well, we really got to spend a lot of time on the defense, and it starts with Harold Perkins Jr. No surprise, maybe a half hour ago, the SEC announcing he was the SEC Defensive Player of the Week. No-brainer there. 8 tackles, Gordy, in the game, 6 solo, 4 sacks, ties a single-game record for LSU going back to 1995. And albeit maybe a half second away from coming away with 6 and a third strip. He was 3 strips in the game, including the big one to seal the victory for LSU. But, I mean, it was as if Arkansas they had no answer. I mean, I think he was a big factor into why they went from Hornsby.
Yeah.
When Perkins was spying him, that shut down Hornsby quick. So they said, hey, we got to be able to throw the ball. And Perkins still disrupted what they wanted to do. He was unstoppable Saturday.
Hey, the ultimate sign of respect for me is when coaches start mentioning you by name. And we know what Lane Kiffin said about Perkins.
2 weeks in a row.
Look, Kendall Browse came out, and Arkansas went with a new look. And, of course, this was a new quarterback, but a 1-by-3 personnel in terms of spreading the football field with trips. And by running trips formation and Harold Perkins coming on as the nickelback, by alignment, he had to go line up on the second wide receiver in that trips formation. Basically, they're just taking him out of the football play.
Right.
You go cover space. We want to get 40 out of the box. And slowly but surely, as the game went on, Matt House was able to make some adjustments, and you're exactly right. Perkins came in. He came in as a spy when Hornsby was on the football field, and they shut down a lot of that spread the run stuff. And then when they went to Forden, Perkins went back to that outside linebacker nickel sort of position and just wreaked havoc on the Arkansas quarterback.
You know, it's one of those things, Gordy, where I've been here 7 years now and never pretend to know all the great history. I know bits and pieces, but when you hear a lot of people who have followed this program for a long, long time with all of the great defensive players that have been here, and suddenly on Saturday afternoon and into the evening you hear Tyrann Matthews and Harold Perkins Jr. in the same kind of category, that tells me the impact he's had.
I mean, you're skipping Devin White and Debo Jones. I mean, two fantastic linebackers that can run, that have made the Pro Bowl. Yeah, he's been fantastic, and think about it, he's just scratching the surface. I mean, he knows pieces of this defense. You feel like they've got him in the spiral, and they've got him blitzing off the edge roll. Wait till he gets a year under his belt, and he understands fully what Matt House is trying to do with this defense.
Defensively, LSU, again, I think winning the game, a big part of that, Harold Perkins Jr. Now, you moving forward, out of conference against UAB. We'll talk about the Blazers coming up in the next segment. But, Gordy, we said on this show, Coach Kelly said on Monday, he told me on Thursday night at his radio show that a lot of respect for Barry Odom, defensive coordinator. Sure. Immediately following that game, you hear all of the analysts talk about, hey, maybe this is the guidebook. This is the map now against what Jaden Daniels has been able to do over the last 4 weeks. Basically 3 down linemen, 8 defensive backs trying to cover all of the territory and daring LSU to run the ball. We'll talk about the running game, which I thought was very effective, especially when they needed it. But defensively, do we expect to see – 2 questions. Do we expect to see this moving forward? And, again, is there anybody else left on the schedule outside of Georgia in that title game in Atlanta that have the personnel? Because we forget, while they had 8 defensive backs, they still had really 2 good linebackers, Bumper Pool and Drew Sanders, who I think were almost kind of the in-betweeners there to help defend against LSU.
I don't think the LSU is going to see a 3-3-5 or this 3-5-3 look that we've seen out of Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and out of Arkansas. Not sure. UAB's traditionally they play a 4-man front, 2 linebackers, and they'll play a little bit of nickel. I mean, but to your point, I think that schematically they brought a lot of pressure on this LSU football team. And this offense simply did not get in rhythm. And so the majority offensively of, I think, the attack zones, running between the tackles with the running back, getting Daniels on the edge in the pass run game, and then getting some of the short passing game. The latter two things I mentioned just were not on. And so what did work was between the tackles, and Josh Williams, as you mentioned, 118 yards on 18 carries. Yeah,
again, a career high for Josh Williams there. 7 sacks, 5 in the first half by the Arkansas defense, the most in any half by any team in the SEC up to that point. And I think you were on the sidelines. We saw it from our vantage point. There were times where it looked like the coaching staff thought Jaden held the ball a little long. That resulted in a couple of those sacks, something that he had done a little bit better. But, again, I don't know if it was the temperature, the weather, the look defensively. It just looked like, as you said, wasn't comfortable and just couldn't release the football.
You know, the word I keep using with Jaden Daniels is rhythm. And I felt like he just wasn't decisive. There was a lot of indecision, and he was kind of feeling his way. Looked like some earlier games, and it's one of those things. I think you go in and you look at the tape this morning, you show it to him. These are the things that we need to correct, and then quickly get back on the practice field and get back in rhythm. A lot of this offense, they like to go in tempo. And once Daniels gets into a comfort zone like he had been the prior 3 games, that's where you want to be. And hopefully just write this off as, look, it was cold. We're coming off the Alabama win. We were out of sync. Let's fix some of the things. Like, there are penalties, there are drops, there are other things that went on there, and get this offense back into the rhythm that they perform best in.
Again, as Gordy mentioned, Josh Williams, excellent day running the ball when they needed it. Had the lone touchdown for LSU in a tight game where that one was huge. And, of course, Damian Ramos with 2 field goals. You needed every point you could get. LSU able to survive 13-10, get out of a chilly and cold Fayetteville, get back to what it was. I was laughing because some of the players we got off the plane in Baton Rouge in the evening, they were like, wait a minute, I thought we left Fayetteville. It was a little cooler, but I think everybody's more comfortable right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Want to mention as well, we don't know as of yet, but we're expecting maybe about the time Coach Kelly takes the podium, we will have an idea of when LSU and Texas A&M will get together in Bryan College Station in the regular season finale coming up 2 weeks, or rather 1 week from this coming weekend. So we'll try to pass that along to you before we're done. Don't know it yet. We're going to take a time out. When we come back, we'll kind of give you what we know about the Blazers, who picked up a pretty solid win over North Texas this past Saturday. We'll find out what Gordy knows about UAB. Want to remind you to download the ASAP app. Get all of your game day needs delivered right to your door. ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. And don't forget to use the code TIGERS22. You'll get free delivery. Also a chance to win some autographed items and maybe even some tickets. So go to asap.com. Again, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Back to talk about UAB as we lead you up to the Brian Kelly press conference delivered by the aforementioned asap.com.
Albertsons is making shopping and saving easier than ever. Check out Albertsons For You in our mobile app, where you can shop for groceries and save weekly with digital coupons all in one place. With Albertsons For You, you can earn rewards points every time you shop and redeem them for free groceries. Brand new Albertsons For You members receive $5 off their next $25 purchase just for signing up. Download the Albertsons app or go to albertsons.com to sign up. Albertsons, fresh food, local flavors.
Support your LSU Tigers with Hancock Whitney, the official bank of LSU Athletics. From game day to the offseason, Hancock Whitney LSU credit and debit cards are a big win for any Tiger fan. Want to get your paws on these cards? Well, apply online or visit HancockWhitney.com/LSU. Hancock Whitney Bank, member FDIC. All accounts subject to credit approval. Terms and conditions may apply.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can. But it's just as important to take time for yourself. AARP can help. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The passion, the tradition, the rivalries. SiriusXM is your destination for all things college sports, and we've got your school covered. On SEC Radio, there's complete coverage of every school in the conference, including live games, plus 24/7 talk and analysis. So cheer along online or on the SiriusXM app and listen to your favorite team anywhere. And now, as a college student, you can stream your first 3 months of SiriusXM for $1. Fees and taxes apply. See offer details and subscribe now at SiriusXM.com/SEC Sports.
Coach Kelly is just moments away from previewing the week for the Fighting Tigers. This is the Brian Kelly Press Conference, delivered by ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Once again, here are Gordy and Chris.
Coming up at 8 o'clock this coming Saturday, LSU will host UAB out of conference before finishing up the season in Bryan College Station against Texas A&M. UAB coming in 5-5 on the year, 3-4 in Conference USA play. As I mentioned earlier, picked up a win, 41-21 over North Texas, beating the Mean Green this past Saturday. And Gordy, we can talk about a number of things. It was 2015, there was no football at UAB. Eventually, they raised a little bit of money, make a little noise. In 2017, they're back in business. Coach Clark was part of that entire transition. And then earlier this summer, with back issues, just walked away from coaching. So they still have an interim head coach. Darren Henshaw, who I'm aware of, worked with at Georgia Southern as the offensive coordinator. But when you talk offense with UAB, I guess you got to start with the one of the leading rushers in the country, Dwayne McBride, who is averaging right around 156 yards per game, leads FBS football.
Yeah, and they've got 2 running backs, and Jermaine Brown is got 70 yards per game. I mean, when you talk about your 1-2 running backs going for 230, 240 per game, that's what they want to do. Mixed results at the quarterback position. Dylan Hopkins is a guy that returned from a year ago. It's more of a thrower. He's throwing for about 183 per game, and they brought over Jacob Zeno in the transfer portal from Baylor, a little bit more of a dual-threat guy. And both have played, and both have actually started some of these games, so they haven't been elite at the quarterback position. They want to run the football.
Yeah, when you look at, again, what they've done this season, they've been in some close games and lost some close games. I mentioned they're 5-5 on the year, but when you look at their overall schedule, it's not as if, they've been blown out. I mean, they've handed a couple of blowouts, including this past week, but they've been right there on the cusp. That 5-5 may be a little deceiving.
It is a little deceiving. Look, they've lost by an average of just over 5 points per game. They lost 2 weeks ago to Texas San Antonio, who's an up-and-coming program in that conference, 44-38. And then they lost, had a 3-game stretch where they lost. They're in the road to Western Kentucky, Florida Atlantic. I mentioned UTSA before getting back to winning ways against North Texas. So, look, UAB traditionally has been a salty team, mid D1 sort of team. They're a step back from where they were under Bill Clark, but still, LSU doesn't come and play. It could be a tough night in Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, you mentioned that UTSA game. That, by the way, in that close game was double overtime for the Roadrunners to pull away with the victory. You mentioned it's important to pick up a win for Coach Kelly. Not trying to guesstimate what the coach is going to say, but the approach this week, coming off the way the Tigers played this past Saturday, what do you think the emphasis is for LSU?
I think offense getting back to who LSU's identity is, right? We're going to go quick, explosive, and attacking. It felt like in that football game, that was the first time in a while that LSU was on their heels. They had been the aggressor against Florida, against Ole Miss, and, of course, against Alabama. I think getting back to that and getting the mindset right there. Defensively, continue to do what you've been doing. This is a good matchup, I think, that if you've got a pocket quarterback, then they want to run the football. LSU could really get after you and attack with the people they have. And then overall, Chris, just cleaning up some of the penalties. It was a sloppy game. And look, we've been doing this for a while. I've been doing this, the sideline, been around this for a while. LSU just after Alabama in Fayetteville, LSU doesn't get up for Arkansas the same way Arkansas gets up for LSU. It is what it is. How do you get back to getting to that consistency that Coach Kelly and his staff preach day in, day out?
That leads me to one of the points I wanted to talk about because, again, you find out when you arrive back in Baton Rouge, you are the SEC West champions, which nobody but those guys in that locker room believed back in August, had a feeling or belief at all. We all know that. But you come in, and Coach Kelly says it all the time. He talked about it on Thursday. This is a journey. There is no destination. And while everybody's going to pump these guys up about being the SEC West champs and coming out of nowhere and surprising and all this other stuff, it comes down to, as you said, doing the same things they've been doing since Coach Kelly really got his hands on them in January.
Right. You're favored over UAB. Texas A&M, we're all aware of what's going on over there right now. I think the focus is on today. And if I'm in that meeting room, I'm Coach Kelly. I'm saying, guys, we got a long way to go before we're going to be able to compete with Georgia in this SEC championship. And it starts today. How do we get better today? Focus on getting better today. And if we do that, UAB should take care of itself.
What do you think the atmosphere will be like? Again, with the last chance to see LSU in 2022 play at home, it is out of conference. It is UAB against a 500 team. But you are kind of celebrating the effort up to this point. Not finished, as we've all certainly demonstrated. I don't want Coach Kelly to hear that we think we've arrived. But from an atmosphere, late game, I mean, what do you think it's going to be like in Tiger Stadium?
I think it's going to be a lot better than a usual non-conference game, all the circumstances. Plus, you get the 1 hour of festivities before this kickoff, Chris. So I think it'll be a loud Tiger Stadium.
Again, it'll be just after 8 o'clock, LSU and UAB. Going to be a running attack expected for the Blazers. LSU trying to get their offense back on track. I mentioned, by the way, that Ramos with 2 made field goals. First time he's done that in a game, so kudos to him on special teams. Your overall thought, because I thought we came away from the Alabama game feeling a little bit better. The improvements have been made. this past Saturday, special teams for you?
Special teams, maybe a step back. There were some mistakes out there, but look, Ramos kicks the two big field goals in tough conditions. It was cold. It was windy. We know what the field was like. I thought that was a plus. But, Chris, with the overall game, I think you look at that, you realize it is what it is. It was the week after Alabama. It's a win. And you don't sit there and cry over a win that you on the road in this conference, and you move on. And, again, focus on today. How do we get better for UAB?
All right. Well, we're waiting for Coach Brian Kelly. We're told he is just about moments away from taking to the podium. Just looking around the SEC this past weekend, the atmosphere at Auburn was something to behold. Congratulations to Cadillac on the big win and really the big celebration. Ole Miss and Alabama. A lot of us pulling for the Tide this past Saturday. They get the job done. Again, Ole Miss coming up short with a chance late in that game. Some other kind of musings across the SEC Saturday.
Yeah, I still hadn't gotten a full time to see Georgia, but, Mike Leach and Mississippi State gave them some fits for a while until Georgia had a chance to pull away. And then how about Vanderbilt? Big win at Kentucky on the road, their first win in 3 years.
And that Florida win for LSU starting to look a little better, too.
Yes, it is.
All right, let's go to the podium. Here's Coach Brian Kelly.
Good morning. Certainly a very tragic day in Charlottesville, and our thoughts and prayers are with the football players at Virginia who were senseless victims of shooting on their campus early this morning. It's tragic. Our hearts go out to them, the football program, the university. Just senseless violence. College campuses should be a place where it's violent-free, and what happened yesterday is certainly heartbreaking, and we certainly pray for all those involved, and certainly hits close to home as well. Having players that actually had relationships with players on the team. So again, thoughts and prayers with everybody involved, and we will certainly keep an eye on this matter. So. With that, we'll move on to this weekend, and obviously last weekend, our football team was challenged for 4 quarters against an Arkansas football team that we knew was going to be difficult to play at Fayetteville, and they were. They were well prepared. They were well coached for the game, and quite frankly, I think our guys, look, winning's a habit and losing's a habit. And, what we can take out from that game is that they have done the things necessary to make winning a habit. And just like losing becomes a habit, they found a way to win that football game. And, we had some guys that had superlative, performances. Harold Perkins was certainly the SEC Player of the Week again. I don't think that's to anybody's surprise. He certainly also was National Player of the Week. I think he was the let me get the facts down here so I have them right. What was he? What national player was he? Walter. Thank you, Walter Camp. Why don't you tell me? We'll make this easier. It's interactive. The Walter, except for calling plays, we'll leave that for you. Can just write that stuff down. Walter Camp. So obviously some great individual performances. And we did things defensively that allowed us, to find a way to win the football game. Special teams were solid, and we found a running game that allowed us to put together enough offense to win a football game. But again, I'll go back to the fact that winning's a habit, and our guys have done a lot of things the right way to create winning habits off the field that contributed to finding a way to win the football game. So there's a lot to work on. We've got to coach better. We've got to prepare our football team better. We've got to do a lot of things better. That falls on everybody associated, and that's what we have to work on this week going into UAB. A lot of this will be about our improvement, our preparation, how we get ready to look. If we just get 1% better this week, we'll be a better football team, and that will be our focus. This is a really good football team that we're playing in UAB. As I segue into this weekend's game, it's Senior Day at LSU. We'll have 17 seniors that we'll be honoring. 13 of them have already earned their college degree. Obviously our mission is to graduate champions, and we'll be able to live up to that creed. So kickoff 8 o'clock, a later start for our guys, but they'll certainly go through a similar routine that we've had throughout the year. As I mentioned, last home game at Tiger Stadium, and playing a UAB team that and first-year head coach Brian Vincent, who's taken over, he had been the OC. They have, one of the best running backs in the country in Dwayne McBride. He's got over 1,400 yards rushing. Very accomplished on offense. I think from an overview, what I would say is a very mature team. This is made up of fifth-year seniors. There's a number of sixth-year players on this team. So this is a mature veteran football team that has a very good offensive structure. This is a team that knows what they want to do. They want to run the inside-outside zone play. They want to be play-action pass. Defensively, they're in a 3-down, 4-down structure. It's a well-coached football team. And it's a team that, quite frankly, is better than its record. They've had 3 or 4 losses that could easily be wins, and this could be one of the top teams in the non-Power 5 that would be coming into Tiger Stadium. So this is a challenge. This is a really good challenge for our football team, and we'll have to play well in Tiger Stadium against a really veteran football team. And again, led by Hopkins. Defensively, very productive linebackers in Wilder and Taylor. And again, I think what stands out to me is their run game, their play action pass, and then defensively their ability to move into 3-down, 4-down looks and be multiple. So, again, this is going to be a lot about, our football team being better prepared and then flipping the switch into, better performance on Saturday. So, all you guys.
About just getting 1% better, specifically on the offensive side. After having 3 really good weeks, just kind of what do you want to address on that side of the ball after maybe not playing the way you had against Arkansas?
Yeah, so we were defended quite well, and so I think part of this is understanding what adjustments that we have to make when teams are looking to defend things that have been really good for us. So, we've got to make some adjustments. We've got to look at how we're doing things and be, I think, one step ahead, from that perspective. And have some adjustments, do some things that allow us to be effective at what we're good at. And quite frankly, our preparation has to be better. We've got to coach better. And I'll put a lot of that on myself in terms of preparing our football team, in particular on the offensive side of the ball.
Coach, outside of Harold Perkins, how much has the flu impacted the team? Do you have some other guys that have caught it, or? Yeah,
I mean, it's been fairly pervasive, throughout the program. I think we've managed it the best we can. But yeah, it's around. I don't know that it had anything to do with our performance on Saturday. We just, we're dealing with it on a day-to-day basis.
First, is that why there was chicken broth on the sideline? And then I wanted to ask a football question.
I prefer clam chowder, but they weren't going to go with the New England style. Obviously the salt, for hydration purposes, and then obviously hot because of the weather. So a combination. Dr. Frakes had put together that with a couple of other elixirs. I think he could have sold it at the State Fair and made a little bit of money as the LSU way of getting you better in the second half. But no, I think all of them had some form of, nutrients that were needed for the guys at that particular time.
And then I wanted to ask, what makes Josh Williams such an effective runner?
Well, he's, first of all, the physicality that he brings, low pads, plays low, strong, physical, and he's so strong. His lower half is so strong. He keeps his legs moving, and once you think you've got him tackled, there's 3 or 4 more yards. Runs to daylight, very effective runner in all those areas. But I think his strength is, his ability to do a little bit of everything for us. Pass protect, catch the ball out of the backfield, and be a strong inside-out runner.
You may not love this with 2 games left to go, but will you or anyone on the staff begin looking at Georgia and starting any type of prep?
No. I mean, I think we'll have plenty of time, to get information on Georgia. And we're pretty much aware of, Georgia and who they are and what they're about. So, our focus will be on UAB and A&M because they matter. Those games, for us in terms of where we are and the development of our program, these singular games are so important to us. Look, I get the SEC championship game is what it is, right? It gets you one step. But as we're climbing this ladder for us in terms of the development of our program, these games are so pivotal for us in terms of our development. It's crazy to be able to think of anything else but these individual games.
Coach, a couple of things. The 3-man front by Arkansas, do you expect to see that from other teams until you adjust? And 2, as a program, are you ahead of schedule?
We've seen 3 down probably more than any other front. I think what was different is their edges were a little bit more aggressive, and we just simply didn't take advantage of that aggressiveness. And like I said, I think it falls on me, and we've got to prepare our team to be more aggressive to teams that want to play 3 down with the edges being so close. We have talented players on the perimeter, and we've got to get the ball out to them. So that's the answer to question 1. Question 2 was, look, I didn't put any wins or losses on this team. I want to play hard. I want to be better in November. I want to teach them how to win. I think we've hit all of those markers, and that's kind of where I wanted this program to be. So I think we're at where we should be at this time.
Yeah, Brian, right here. After the game, Sam Pittman talked about their whole defensive game plan was not to beat gap Sam, was just to blitz and get Daniels on the ground. That's the first time you've seen a defense basically say, we got to stop this guy first.
It was an aggressive defensive game plan that, was unique in that sense, but we have to be better. We have to prepare for those kinds of situations where defenses just say, we're just going to give you everything we got, and what do we have to lose? And it falls on me and our offensive staff to prepare for those kinds of situations, and we'll be prepared, and it won't happen again.
Right up the middle, Coach. Harold's obviously gathering a lot of attention, and rightfully so, but could you speak to his teammates opening him up, freeing him up, and the job that each of them maybe differently are doing to allow him to be so free?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot of this has to do with the ability to flush him out, and that's BJ and Ali Gay, and certainly J. Roy probably had his best game of the year. I mean, there's a lot of guys that go into this, right? Mike or Baskerville, I could go on and on with that front. Savion was outstanding. He played with speed and agility. That group up front, Makai Wingo, we've talked about all year, they make a lot of that happen because they flush that quarterback. And then, you got a guy like that can just chase him down. It's pretty impressive that the marriage, if you will, between the two, where you have a group that can get a quarterback outside the pocket and then go chase it down. It's kind of what I talked about from an offensive perspective. It's gotten us thinking about, do you spy Harold now? Like, do you put a spy on Harold? Because, do you have somebody from the running back position try to shadow him? And so we're preparing for all of these eventualities as we kind of move forward.
Josh Williams obviously gotten a lot of claim for his pass protection. You even mentioned it. I mean, over your career, like, what goes into developing pass protection with the running back? Because I'm sure a lot of those guys didn't think they came here to block.
Yes and no. I mean, look, I understand the question, but I think it's important that running backs clearly understand that if you want to stay on the field, right, you can't be a miss it. I'm going to miss you, right? You're going to be on the field less because you can't pass pro. But what I think makes a really good, first of all, you've got to want to do it, right? You've got to have the technique. But more importantly, it's the ability to read and recognize defenses. Most backs go what we call coast to coast. They start on one side, and then if their read doesn't show, they have to go all the way across and then read the other side. And that's a lot. And so most backs have to be able to do that. And it requires a lot of film study. Coach Wilson has to spend a lot of time with those backs, and they have to watch a lot of film and pick up a lot of different blitzes. And so football intelligence is really important at that position. So in recruiting, we have to make sure that backs have that ability to do it. And Josh is one of them that has a high football IQ.
Coach, when you were building this roster in the offseason, I think you said, we want guys that want to be here as a big priority to the transfer portal and all that. Obviously, they have to have talent and know how to play, but how much is team chemistry and the fact that they seem to be a real tight-knit group played in your success this year?
It's huge. I mean, I don't know that I've ever had a really good football team that didn't like each other. Now, there's going to be a couple of guys here and there that, I'm sure I rub you guys the wrong way. I mean, it's like everybody's going to have a couple of guys like that, but generally speaking, they like each other. And I think it starts because everybody's held accountable to the same level. Like, the best player doesn't get special treatment. Everybody gets treated the same way. And I think when you start with that premise, everybody knows that they're all pulling the same way. And that gradually they start to get closer and closer as a group. And that began in January, and I think it's just kind of been able to build along the way. And they enjoy being around each other. They enjoy the road trips. They enjoy being on the plane. They enjoy being on the bus and in the hotel together. And you can sense that and you can feel it. It's a fun group to be around.
Hey, Coach, was that Greg Penn's best game this year? And then how far along is the linebacker group from camp in week one? I guess specifically Baskerville and Penn and Perkins.
It was easily Greg Penn's best game. Now, we challenged him. Because, as you know, Tolan's on his heels, right? He's coming on. He's making progress. He's doing some really good things. And Greg can feel that. And I love the way he responded to that challenge. He played his best game. He played with physicality. He played with great instincts. And that's what we expect out of him. I think he's got to have a great offseason, which he will in the weight room. And he's going to be a heck of a good player for us. But it's nice to have some young guys that are forcing that issue too. So, yeah, it was really good to see him play the way he did.
Obviously, you inherited this senior class, but you've been with them for a year now. Could you get a little bit deeper on them and just kind of a different year with the COVID years that they've all had? Maybe they're even more mature, more older. So what have they meant to you in this season?
Yeah, so every senior year is a little bit different. A lot of these guys have already graduated. Some haven't graduated. Some may want to come back. Some don't want to, be part of the celebration because they are coming back. They don't want to do it twice. So it's a little bit of both, right? But I can tell you this. What stands out are the stories like Micah Baskerville, who, when I got here, everybody was like, well, you know, he doesn't go to class, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, and he's been amazing. He's gotten his degree, he's been a great leader, he's been inspirational in everything he's done. I love that story. To watch him grow and do the right things in the classroom, to overcome all the things that were in his past, that to me is this senior class. And watching them, you know, become SEC West champions is so gratifying because they made that choice. I mean, they could have been average. They could have been poor. They could have just been good. They've chosen to be champions by the way they've gone to work every day, both in the classroom and on the football field. And that, to me, is this senior day, is the choices that these guys made have been outstanding.
Yeah, Brian, following up actually on Micah, was it for him the key, because he'd had some playing time earlier in his career, but was the key kind of doing all those things off the field in order to actually kind of flourish the way that he has this year and rise back up the depth chart?
Well, I think it was the standards of the program that you know, obviously were set, and he was going to meet and exceed the standards that were set. And then along the way, he started to feel really good about, you know, his academics and getting his degree, and it was important to him, and knew that he could be successful both in the classroom and on the football field. So I think empowering him to believe that he could do it and be successful, and then holding him accountable accordingly. And so we gave him the belief and the trust that once he was able to get those things accomplished, he would be a center point in terms of what we did defensively. Good?
Is that it?
One
Someone
more?
else have the mic. You mentioned Tolan. You only signed 15 high school guys, and I think 6 or 7 are either starting or at least playing a lot.
I would have signed more if we could have.
Right. How impressed have you been with that group, especially considered that you're starting them at really key positions?
Yeah, that freshman class has obviously been a huge piece of this SEC West championship team, right? You know, you've got 2 starting tackles, you've got a tight end, you've got Harold Perkins, you've got Tolan, you've got a number of guys that are playing in roles that are helping us in so many different ways, from, you know, Dybert kicking the ball into the back of the end zone on a regular basis. You know, you just go through the roster. That freshman class has been very impactful.
Just quick personal updates. Brian Thomas, John Emery, how are they doing? Then also Garrett obviously seemed available but didn't play. What was sort of the reason behind that?
Brian Thomas should be. Well, I'll know this afternoon, but he went through the next step in the concussion protocol. He was in a concussion protocol from practice. He did very well. We're hopeful that if everything goes well today, that he will be in non-contact tomorrow, and then obviously continues to move into contact on Wednesday. The next one was John Emery, fine, just a bruise.
Hey, Coach. One of the sort of the unsung heroes this season has been Damian Ramos. What sort of growth have you seen from him this year?
I just think consistency has been, like, when we talk about his growth, you know, we brought him in halfway through camp, right? And so his growth has been so meteor. I mean, it's been a meteor, right? He's gone from not being here to he takes over the starting position. And then I think just consistency. And I think that that's kind of pretty big for a kicker, right? Just to be consistent week in and week out. I've really liked his progress. Just, you know, every day he comes with the same kind of mindset. And he works on any of the things that, you know, that have been an issue, right? You know, if he misses from a particular hash, he's going over and working on that particular skill set. He's very organized, very thoughtful, very intentional in everything that he does. Thank you.
Head coach Brian Kelly with the Brian Kelly press conference delivered by ASAP.com. You heard it there. Not looking ahead beyond this week as LSU will host UAB coming up Saturday night with kickoff just after 8 o'clock. Also, congratulations, Harold Perkins Jr., picking up back-to-back SEC Defensive Player of the Week, and was announced just about the time Coach Kelly took to the podium that LSU and Texas A&M will get together at Kyle Field coming up with a 6 p.m. kickoff a week from this Saturday to finish up the regular season of 2022. We'll take a timeout, come back, and wrap it up. The Brian Kelly press conference delivered by ASAP.com.
Together, we are partners, setting a new standard for health. Together, we prove that no matter how battle-tested we are, our spirit remains undefeated. Our Lady of the Lake and LSU are creating transformational change and impacting Louisiana with a new standard for healthcare, research, and education. Together, Our Lady of the Lake and LSU are champions for Louisiana. Together, we roar. Learn more at ololrmc.com/LSU.
Welcome back to our podcast here in the bayous of Louisiana. We are looking for the exclusive multiplier games from the lottery with Louisiana's very first $20 scratch-off and a top prize of $500,000. Wait a tick. We found it! Hold on. What's that sound? I think I'll get a closer look. Wait! Oh.
Hey, that's the Explorer! He found the multiplier games!
Thank you, everyone.
Try all 5 multiplier games. You could win up to $500,000. Must be at least 21 to purchase.
Hey, so what's a great way to spread awareness that driving high is illegal everywhere? A catchy song, of course.
You can run, but you can't drive high. You can run, but you can't drive high.
Friendly reminder, don't drive high. If you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
In the SEC, we sweat the small stuff. The attention to tradition. The preparation for competition. The smallest things can have the biggest impact on this field and a whole host of other fields. To shine among the brightest stars, you have to sweat the small stuff. Because here, it just means more.
This is the Brian Kelly press conference, delivered by ASAP.
Coming up Thursday, the Brian Kelly Show live from TJ Ribs comes your way at 7 o'clock. Then on Saturday, final home game of the regular season. You heard Coach Kelly talk about it. Senior night at Tiger Stadium. We'll get things underway beginning at 6 p.m. with LSU Game Day. Hunt Palmer, Marlon Favorite, Brandon Taylor. And then just after 8 o'clock, Doug Morrow, Gordy Rush will join me for the call of the action, LSU and UAB. Thanks for joining us this week. Be back here next week. Get ready for the final week of the regular season. Thanks to Gordy Rush for his help. We'll be back here same time, same channel with the Brian Kelly press conference delivered by ASAP.
This has been the Brian Kelly press conference, delivered by ASAP, the official mobile ordering partner of LSU Athletics. Download the ASAP app today.